Hello, welcome everybody. I'm Natasha from Telltale Hearts, and this is Puppetry at Home for children with SEN or of a high determination. And this is our third session, Puppet Territory. I'd just like to thank the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority for making this initiative a reality. And welcome to our third and final session. So just to recap, last week we were looking at puppets and emotions, and I wonder, how did you get on with your task, looking at different emotions in maybe your scarf or even a cushion perhaps? And did you have a go with the poorly puppet scenario, using perhaps a cuddly toy from a favourite toy of your child? Well, I hope you got on well. If you have any questions, do put them in the chat box. If you've got questions about the task last week, or if you've got any questions during the course of this webinar, put them in the chat box and I'll come to those questions at the end of this session. So, what is it that we're going to be doing today exactly with Puppet Territory? How can we enable children to explore the world through a puppet? Well, the world can be a pretty big and scary place for all young children, and if they have a special educational need, then they're going to need some real determination to help navigate it. And I'm sure that we all want different ways in which we can try and help them anticipate problems, but also come to terms with issues that they might have had or problems they might have had when out and about in the real world. So we're going to look at setting and how to create a meaningful environment, just using household objects or things from your child's toy box, and how in that environment you can then use a puppet as a kind of guide for your child. We'll look at how that puppet can help mirror some of your child's own anxieties or feelings, and how that in turn can give your child confidence to perhaps find beauty in the world too. So I am Natasha, I'm the Artistic Director from Telltale Hearts, and I've been working with puppets and stories for over 20 years, both as a puppeteer for other companies, but also in developing shows for young children and children with special educational needs during the course of, well, about 20 years. I've also worked for the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital and their therapeutic and specialist play department, using puppets and stories in an interactive and responsive way. And perhaps most importantly, I'm also a parent, and I know what lockdown is like with young children at home. In fact, I have one self-isolating as we speak. So, creating a landscape. What territory is it that you want to help your child to navigate? Obviously, I am here in the UK, and the kind of environment that we navigate outside are probably rather culturally specific to the UK, or even more so to Yorkshire. And that's quite a different environment, perhaps, to your environment. But one thing that's universal are those urban spaces. So cityscapes, navigating roads, getting into crowded areas. These kind of things are universal. It might be that you want to help navigate going to a park or a play area, a shopping mall, might be nursery or school. It might even be part of your home that you're wanting to explore as puppet territory, or an activity centre. So you know your child or children best, and you know what kind of settings perhaps are the ones that fill them with anxiety or are slightly difficult for them to navigate. So you know what setting it is that might be the most appropriate one for your child to explore. And how can you build this territory? So I'm just going to move the screen back a little bit so that it can give you a chance to see a little bit of what I'm starting to create. So I'll take the focus a little bit more off me and a little bit more onto the tabletop that we have here. And the kind of, getting the balance between me and this tabletop, isn't it? So the kind of things that I'm going to show you now are kind of wooden blocks. So wooden blocks that are from my child's toy box. They come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and you can construct all kinds of different buildings or different environments. Some of them are triangular. I've just picked out a few ones to help demonstrate the kinds of territory that I'm going to explore for you as a demonstration. So I'm going to pop these here because these are going to figure for my puppet territory. You'll see what they are when I start to get my puppet moving around the scene. So here also just a little jewel box and another of those cylindrical blocks. I'll pop that here so you can see it. And this one is just a cardboard plant pot for planting out that's empty. And I love using card and paper rolled up like this one is, but also you can pleat them as well. Now, the important thing to note about these things is that they are non-prescriptive. They are building blocks, the essential blocks of something. So they don't say, they don't have doors or windows. You can suggest those, but what's really helpful is having open-ended things that you can use in a variety of ways. And that means that you can create all sorts of different territories. So these ones are the rectangular blocks. And here in Penistone, we have a river. So I thought I'd bring a river, just some blue tissue paper that can help represent that water. And we also have a viaduct bridge. So to create this viaduct bridge, I'm using another of the building blocks to create it. I was saying as well about being able to curl paper, but also to fold it. So if you fold the paper up and pleat it, you can even create steps and stairs for your territory to help your puppet to navigate. So I'm just going to stick those on top of the blocks here. Oops. Add another one there. Maybe it's starting to suggest something. You can also use shoe boxes. You know, I'm very fond of shoe boxes. I used those in the first session as well. So here's one of the shoe boxes that's been painted, but they don't have to be painted. You can use them completely plain and they work just as well. If you feel that your child needs sometimes a little bit of help in order to imaginatively engage with the kind of world and scene that you're creating, then you can help them by adding things like windows. So this is just paper that I've just cut into an oblong shape, and I've just put some double-sided sticky tape, or it can be just rolled up tape behind it, so I can stick it on to kind of suggest a window in the building. And here in the UK, we have lots of triangular rooftops. So this is just corrugated card, again, to suggest our triangular rooftop. So you can start to see how I'm creating this territory. If you want more ideas for how to create a territory, on the handout, there is a link there to Telltale Hearts Downloads, which is a family activity pack that supports from here to there. And on pages 2 and 3, there are instructions and guidelines of how you can create more of these kind of building blocks if you don't have the wooden blocks at home, that you can use recycled elements and shoe boxes. I've got another shoe box here that some of you may recognise. It was, in fact, part of the troll that I used in week 1 I'm always happy to use something in multiple ways. I'll just move this out a little bit now. And again, I've used card to make the steps going up to the building. There we are. These, again, it's just coloured card that's been taped together at the back, as you can see. These are fantastic to make fences or to make backgrounds, or even maybe to make little doorways. But for this, I'm actually going to lie it flat in between here. And I think we're very good with our green spaces here in the UK, although given the time of year, they're more muddy than green. But anyway, here's my green space. I'll pop that down. So you can see I'm starting to build now quite a territory that I can navigate around with perhaps a puppet. To give you a little bit more of an idea of how we can use this territory, there's a short extract. It's a little spliced together section from a show From Here to There, which we toured extensively, not just around the UK, but also to the US and also to India. And it gives you more indication of how you can use a territory like this and what kind of puppet might it be that can best work in this kind of world. So without further ado, let's have a look at that extract. It's just a couple of minutes. Let's play video 1.
Hi. One child liked dressing up.
The other liked wearing nothing at all.
Hello. So you could see the kind of humanesque puppet that was moving about in that territory, and it's really, really simple to make. And I think it's a great way for you as a parent to be able to help demonstrate. how you can navigate this territory. So I thought I would help demonstrate how to make a simple hand puppet. And it's not that dissimilar from the glove that we had in The Lost Glove, which was the film that was in the session 2. But because it has a head, it's easier to read it as a human figure. So I'm just going to start liking from here to there, just with a strip of paper. In the actual show, it was slightly it was slightly firmer card, but paper is just fine. And you're going to turn it round on itself twice so that it meets itself. And then you just need a bit of sticky tape. I'm using masking tape because I find it much, much easier for speed because I can just tear it. But you can use sellotape, any kind of tape really. So I'm just sticking it along the join and then folding it over itself. So there we have a head. I really love the fact that in From Here to There, we were using puppet heads that didn't have the eyes, because I think it allows more opportunity for children to read the face or read the expression, but that's not always the case for all children. And if your child does struggle more to be able to imaginatively engage in that way, then it's really helpful to draw some eyes on, because that way it gives them more to focus on. And also when you're experimenting with it, it also gives you a little bit more to play off. So if you want, I'm just going to show you. You can draw little eyes. It's quite difficult to do this upside down, but here we go. So there's 1 and 2. There we go. So you can see we've got little eyes there and the head can peek about. Whoops. And finally, again, I think it's really helpful to use a glove. I've got a fingerless glove here and it's woolly because it's pretty cold here in Yorkshire, but it can be any glove. It could be even an evening glove, it could be a full glove. But again, I think it helps give a little bit more clarity to the body of the character. But how are we going to attach the head to the body? Well, this is where the stroke of genius comes in, because all it is that hair bubble, the same kind of hair bubble that we used last week for the Duster Dolly puppets. And we're just going to attach the hair bubble to the back of the puppet head here. And the way we do that is to get even more tape. So I'm just going to tear some more of our wonderful magic tape. And the important thing is to make sure that you get this directly behind the back of the middle of the eyes so that it's not looking slightly to one side. There we go. And then pinching it in place. Ugh. Sorry about this, I'm getting stuck to myself. And then you just tape it to the back, folding it over again and over once more. There we go. And that's holding the hair bubble in place. And then all you need to do is put the hair bubble up to the top of your wrist. And as you can see, we have a little character here, just like in the From Here to There video. Hello. But he has eyes and perhaps is slightly easier to read with the glove. Now you can make a puppet like this, but this might be quite tricky for your child to actually create and navigate, although I'm quite sure that they'll be very happy to use their feet, especially if they have a head. But if that is a difficulty, then you can also use other kind of puppets. These are called dolly pegs, and this one's been made by a child that I worked with, who created it, has painted it and then given it a costume. And this one is another one that is made. You can just see the face there that another child has made. But also you can use Lego figurines, any kind of characters, even if they wanted to use creatures to navigate the territory. That's also fine. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a human type of puppet. I just think, particularly for what we're going to be working with today, it's helpful to have a more humanesque, puppet that can reflect perhaps elements of their experience and is also the child navigating this territory. So that's just an idea if you don't want to go down this road. So now that we've got our territory and now that we've got our puppet, what kind of obstacles and scenarios can you create that are going to replicate the difficulties that your child might have when navigating the world outside? So traffic noise, that's classic, crowds, buildings, sports, all those different sensory overload kind of things. Looking at it in this way, on this kind of territory, is helpful to maybe help them gain confidence in those kind of spaces. So I'm just going to move the camera back a little bit so that you can get the full benefit of the territory that I've created for you. So just 1 second. Great, so now you can see a little bit more of the territory that I've created for you, and we'll explore a path through. So the first thing is not to start right at the difficulty at the beginning, is just to explore first of all, what is your path through this kind of territory. I'm going to pop my character inside, whoops, its door. This is just actually a painted book cover that opens, but it works nicely as a door here. So the first thing is just to find what that path is through this territory. So they can come around here. Yeah, they could even go around there. They can cross here to get to the playing field, and they can cross back, and then they can go and perhaps explore the river, and they can maybe even so you can see I'm already starting to play with the scenario. So that's just an idea to give you a sense of the path that this puppet can make across this territory. Once you've got a kind of pathway and you've worked out your route and where you can actually get round with your hand, because obviously I can't get around here because my arm won't work. So that's why it's helpful to just work out the route beforehand so that you can work out which way your puppet can move. Now is to start adding activities, because one things that puppets do fantastically are those activities. So if one of your issues is looking at how to encourage your child to perhaps join in with different activities, then you can start to think of, oh, okay, maybe in the field, there's a ball activity that they could do. Puppets are fantastic for activities, as I said. Crossing, well, this starts to look a little bit like a road crossing. So perhaps we've got, there's cars, and beep, 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 beep. How to cross that road safely, beep, 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 to get to that green space, to play with the ball. Beep, 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 beep. And maybe we've got different activity here. Maybe we've got, here we go. Ooh. Boing, boing. Swimming activity. Ooh. Ooh. So you're starting to add different scenarios to the different places in your territory. And as last week we were looking at emotions, it's really helpful to think, how is this creature feeling in these different spaces? And maybe what happens if they meet another person? So let's have an explore of that. So you're adding layer by layer. First the path, then thinking of different activities that can take place in each of these places. And then finally starting to think about, what are the points of anxiety? What might be the points that scare or are difficult for your child to confront within this kind of experience? So let's have a look. I'm going to be adding different things into the scenario now. So let's start. Ooh. 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 And if they meet that other person, and you could make it even trickier for these two to meet. How is it that, whose ball is it? If it starts off with one person's ball, how can you join into that game? That's a rather dangerous situation. Right. Beep, 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 beep. Ooh. 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 Boing, 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 boing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ah, ah, ooh, ooh. Ooh, boing, 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 boing. Ee. Ooh, 1, 2, 3, whee! Splish! Ooh, splish! Ooh, ooh, boing, 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 boing. Ooh, boing! Splish! Woo! Splish! Woo! Splish! 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 Ooh. Oh, 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 oh. So you can start to see how you can play with the territory and introduce different characters. Now, it's quite tricky to introduce all the different characters myself, but this gives an excellent opportunity for your child to join in with the game or with the activity. As you could see, this is a big move to jump in from a diving board into the water. So this was the obstacle for my kind of character, but thinking about what those obstacles might be for your own child, what are those big steps, meeting others, meeting new people, that in itself is a pretty big step, and helping to model how those first encounters can happen to give them a structure of how to build those kind of friendships or how to build those kind of interactions. Doing it through this is an excellent way of being able to model it for them. So whilst I clear a little bit of the territory, and just before I do clear that territory, just to say again, this is one way that you can explore the territory for them. And if they want to, you know, they can also join in with their own puppet head and puppet character, or they can use the other characters, and even if they wanted to use their own creatures to explore this world, then they can. There's absolutely no reason why they can't. And actually, as you saw at the end of the video there, and from here to there, where we had the free play activity, when those performances took place in nurseries, it was very often the case that the children would use other objects from the nursery, other characters, and start to use them and animate them around the territory that they'd created with the boxes and the cylinders. So it's a wonderful way of being able to let them manipulate whatever kind of characters or creatures that they are particularly interested in too. Whilst I clear away this puppet territory, I've got another film for you. This one is made by Barnsley Museums, and it was made in lockdown. And I'm sharing this one because it's about difference, and it's about what happens when you don't feel the same as everybody else. And it's a wonderful little story for that. It's called Norman the Slug with a Silly Shell, and it was written by Sue Hendra and Paul Linnett, and the puppet show version is by Lisa Difford, who's a colleague of mine. So I hope you enjoy this little story, and let's play video 2. Video 2, that's the one, it's coming.
Hello, my name's Lisa and I work for Barnsley Museums, but today, like you, I'm at home. I was in my garden this morning and look what I found, a snail shell. But there was nobody living in it. And that got me thinking about my friend Norman. This is Norman. He was hiding in the plants. Come on, Norman, slide this way and come and meet everyone. Norman is a bit like a snail, but a snail without a shell, which makes Norman a slug. And today's story is Norman the Slug with the Silly Shell. And it was written by Sue Hendra, and the pictures were drawn by Paul Linnett. And we're sharing this story with permission from Simon and Schuster. Norman the Slug thought snails were great. Wow, said Norman. Look at them. They're amazing. But unfortunately, the snails didn't think Norman was great. Whee! Norman, you silly slug, they cried. You've spoilt our fun. This only works if you've got a shell. Norman felt left out. Sadly, he skulked off into the moonlight. If only I had a shell, he sighed, looking at his reflection. And that's when he had an idea. Maybe I could have a shell after all, he thought. But finding a shell was not as easy as it seemed. One was too bouncy. One was too noisy. Ooh, that is noisy. One was already taken. Norman, this is my house. Norman, this is my apple. Norman needed time to think. Ta-da! A shell. It was perfect. Norman had never been happier. He could join the snails at last. Norman loved being a snail, and the snails loved Norman's silly shell. But the fun didn't last for long. Suddenly, there was a loud flapping noise. Look out! Bird! Cried the snails in a panic. Quick, slither for your lives, or we'll end up as supper. But the bird was more interested in Norman's silly shell. It looked delicious. Norman was carried up, higher and higher into the sky. Well, what could he do? Norman did the only thing a slug could do. He made slime, lots and lots of it. And with a slither and a slother and a slip and a slide, Norman was free. And he was falling faster and faster and faster until... Norman, are you okay? Asked the snails. Wow, said Norman, that was great. I love flying. If only I had wings. Come on, Norman, let's get you down. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Come on, Norman. Ta-da! Whee! You do like an adventure, don't you, Norman? Well, that's the end of our story today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next week, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Norman.
Hello again. I hope you enjoyed the story of Norman. Thank you, Fatima. That's great. I'm great. It's great that you loved the story. And that's a very different territory, as you can see, and perhaps particular to our green kind of spaces in the UK. But I think the story is also universal. And I'm very happy that I could share that story with you. Just to say that I have included other puppetry links on on the handout, and some of those links are time limited, so it's great if you can investigate those links sooner rather than later. There are some wonderful puppetry stories that different companies have done in lockdown, and other shows that have also been shared online. It's a fantastic resource that we have here in the UK, and I've tried to share some of the best ones. I've also shared a link to Bamboozle Theatre, who are a company that specialise in working with children of a high determination. And this company work in a multi-sensory way. So they do work with puppets, but they work with all senses, and they often work with children and young people who have profound disabilities. And they found fantastic ways of being able to communicate with them. So I've shared a link, which is a little trailer of their show to give you an idea of different ways in which theatre and puppets can be used to enable children to really experience theatre regardless of their background and regardless of what their disability might be. And they toured that piece to China, and so it's a little trailer to show you how that cultural exchange has worked for Chinese audiences. So I'd encourage you to check out those links. And as I said, the family activity pack from here to there has got more ideas of how you can help build those different territories. So we are at the questions stage of the webinar, and let me just see if there is a question there. Yes, you would have the desert. Yes, a very different territory, but another great territory to explore with different recycled objects. Oh, that's great. No questions from Fatima. Thank you. Just a couple of questions that I've prepared from things that people have asked me before. Is just sometimes some people have been concerned if they've not had those wooden blocks at home, and that's just to encourage you to use recycled objects, whether they be cereal packets, so long as they are clean, or Tupperware. Tupperware are fantastic, and you can again just stick the windows like I did on my shoebox, but you could do it on Tupperware to make windows in the Tupperware too, or yogurt pots, all kinds of things to help create those landscapes or desert scenes. And I thought, as the last one, I would share a little story, a short story that took place, because I quite often have people ask, well, how can puppets really connect with children of a high determination or children who are autistic? And when I was working as a puppeteer and performer for the Theatre Rights Company, which is another link I shared with you, we were touring a show called Sleep Tight, which was all about bedtime routines, and all of the artifacts of the bedroom came to life to try and encourage the main character to go to bed and go to sleep. And he came up with every kind of excuse possible. And the way we puppeteered that bedroom was as moon spirits. So we animated the duvet, we animated the pillows, we animated the pajamas. All of these things came to life and created mountainous landscapes, desertscapes, even out of the duvets, for the main protagonist to navigate, where he was desperate to find a glass of water, another excuse to not go to sleep. And it was a really beautiful show. And it was for early years and young children. And a friend of mine had brought his 4-year-old to see it. And I met them before the show in the cafe. And I immediately went over to their son, Gabriel, because as soon as there's a child in the room, I usually want to go and play with them. And he said, look, don't be disappointed, but he has been identified as having autism, and he really won't play with you. He plays in his own way, in his own space, and he doesn't like any kind of physical contact. And so I went and just kind of played alongside, but it was true. It was very difficult for me to get an engagement through an activity. And I went back and I spoke a bit more with the parents. And then afterwards, they brought Gabriel to see the show. And at the very end of the show, we would, as moon spirits, walk between the children and the audience and hand out a feather at the end of the show. And then just sit amongst the children and amongst the audience as they quietly left in that kind of shh kind of atmosphere. And having given out the feathers, Gabriel made direct eye contact with me, which was the first time he'd done that. And he just walked over, and then he climbed up my knees, and he just gave me the most enormous hug. And it was, as you can hear, it was a really emotional moment, because this young boy had seen something in that show and connected with the moon spirits and with the puppets and with that world, and it made a really clear connection for him, and it made it safe. Yeah, I thought, sorry to share my emotion, but it was a really beautiful moment. And I think we so often underestimate our children's understanding. Finding different ways of being able to connect is a really beautiful thing. So thank you for coming to my webinar, to these 3 sessions, and I hope that you have enjoyed them. And if you would like a final task, then as a final task, I would ask you to see if you can recreate a territory, a landscape for your child that has relevance for them, whether it be in the desert, whether it be an activity centre, or whether it be recreating something that they've experienced to help them understand it, or whether it be setting up a place that you are intending to go to as a way of helping them to build confidence. So a little bit like a social story. So presenting some of the things they might expect from this new experience of this new place that they might be visiting, if it's a new activity centre, etc. So that's the final task I leave you. And thank you. I'll just check in the chat box. Oh, thank you, Fatima. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate it. I've really loved doing these sessions for you, and I wish you all the best. And thank you for attending.